Yes, the Israel you know today was created in 1948. But did you know that when the creation of the State of Israel was still in the planning process, Kenya, Madagascar, and Australia were considered as locations where Israel could be created in? In the spirit of each one teach one, let's take a quick dive into the history of how these countries almost became the promised land, a holy land, in my new mini-series called The Lucky Ones Who Narrowly Escaped. But sadly, the Palestinians weren't as lucky. Today we would be discussing Kenya and her narrow escape. The plan they had to locate Israel in Kenya is known as the Uganda Scheme or the British Uganda Program. The British Uganda Program was a plan to give a portion of British East Africa to the Jewish people as homeland. The offer was first made by British Colonial Secretary Joseph Chamberlain to Theodore Herzl's Zionist group in 1903. He offered 5,000 square miles of the Mao Plateau in what is today Kenya. The offer was a response to pogroms against the Jews in Russia, and it was hoped the area could be a refuge from persecution for the Jewish people. Let's take a break and take that information in and put some things in perspective. First of all, a colonizer attempting to give out land that doesn't belong to him. Secondly, it's 1903. Kenyans were still being colonized and enslaved in Kenya, but the colonizers were planning on how to give part of their home to the Jews so they could feel safe and protected, while they themselves, Kenyans, in their own home, were not safe and protected. You see the irony? Kenya gained her independence in 1963. Now for a second imagine if the plan to make part of Kenya, Israel, had pulled through. Then the Kenyans now will be forced to deal with a group of people who believe that their Kenyan land is their promised land. Una see how wahala take the start. That exactly is the wahala that is happening in Palestine. Now back to the gist. After Chamberlain offered up plateau the next year, a 3-man delegation was sent to inspect the plateau. However, the observers found a dangerous land filled with lions and other creations. Don't be small pits we jump past so with this fact. Shout out to those lions and other creations at there, not too much. Moreover, it was populated by a large number of Maasai who did not seem at all amenable to an influx of people coming from Europe. It don't say where our Maasai brothers and sisters, the peep game they come. Shout out to our Maasai brothers and sisters, please. If you guys don't learn anything today, learn from this part. Don't be friendly with strangers. It doesn't end well. After receiving this report, Congress decided in 1905 to politely decline the British offer. And this plan is called the Uganda Scheme or the British Uganda Program because Chamberlain saw the Mao Plateau in Kenya while he was passing by the Uganda Railway.
Can somebody stitch this and explain what apartheid means, please? I'm trying to I'll help you out, sis. No shade, no tea to this content creator because I really think she just wants to know. The reason why it sounds so familiar, the word apartheid, and the description that you've been getting sounds so familiar to what happened to the United States when the Civil Rights era happened, is because it's the exact same. What happened with the issue in Israel is during World War II. After World War II, there were all of these Jews that lived in Europe. They were European Jews. They were not indigenous to that region. They said, okay, well, we need a safe place to live now that, we've been massacred during this Holocaust. And the Western powers wanted a foothold in the Middle East to serve their own interests. So they said, okay, bastardized version is that we're going to go ahead and give you this land. British gave the land to create Israel, and it wasn't even theirs to give. And the problem with that is when you give land that people are already living on and had been living on for over half a millennia, aka the Palestinians, there's going to be a problem with that. And they did this based on the fact that they believed it was their divine right through God. God said that they were supposed to have this land and damn everybody else that was on it. Does that sound familiar? Like the Carpe Diem type of deal? The manifest destiny? The reason why colonization spread around the world is because they believed that it was their divine given right. That God said they could have whatever they wanted. They just had to go and discover it. Basically, Israel went over there and discovered the land that the Palestinians have been living on for centuries. And not only did they go over there and discover it, not just say, oh, we just want our own peaceful little plot. They completely took it over. Took it over. And over the last several decades, they have relegated the Palestinians to this small strip of Gaza. It's literally not even 200 miles square wide, and there's over 2 million people. Mind you, of those 2 million people, more than half of them are children or people under the age of 25. On top of that, okay, the reason why there's an apartheid is because they have different roads For Palestinians, Palestinians cannot go and come freely. They have completely blocked them off by air, by land, and by sea from ever leaving. They don't get passports, and if they do get passports, they never get stamped because they can't get out. They have different hospitals, they have different schools, and then the hospitals and schools they do have, they've been bombing systematically. In 2014 alone, there were over 10,000 of them murdered and massacred. Mind you, remember I said the majority of these people, over half of them, are children. And Israel's known that, and they've been backed by the United States and the other Western colonized nations, because again, they want a foothold in the Middle East. Why? Oil, money, control, Islamophobia, all of that, okay? And that's to be dealt with at another issue. The problem is that there are humanitarian issues going on over in Palestine. Palestine has been trying for decades. They've gone through the international courts, they've gone through the UN, and because the United States is backing them, they know that Israel has been committing war crimes. They know that Israel is guilty of humanitarian atrocities, and they have been. This is a matter of public record. But because the United States backs them, along with Britain and other westernized countries, they turn a blind eye to it. Palestinians are literally denied their humanity, just like the blacks were, and kind of still are. They live in the largest open-air prison in the world. And now they had a small group of Hamas, funded by Iran and the other countries, saying, hey, we'll come in here and we'll try to fight for you because they don't have an army, they don't have anything. They literally got taken over by It's like what happened with the Indians. When the colonizers came over to the United States and they decided to decimate the Native American population based on the fact that God told them that they were supposed to have that land by any means necessary, and the ones that were already there were savages, so they had no autonomy and they were basically seen as worthless and they were a scourge to be exterminated. That is what's going on over in Palestine, and that's what's been going on. They literally have a two-party system. It was supposed to be a two-party state where they both work together, but Israel, with the help of the United States and other Western countries, has went over there, funded them, and has made the other side subservient. I don't like how they say, oh, well, one side is, they're both doing bad. No, because that implies equality and equity, and Palestine has none of that. They don't have their own army. They don't have their own supply system. They don't even have access to their own water and electricity because Israel controls it, and they've been cut that off. They cut it off whenever they want to. 2 million people relegated into a strip less than 200 miles, and Israel is the one that controls their water, their food, their passage. Israel has always done that. They have been massacring these people for decades, treating them as second-class citizens. When you hear the word apartheid, think civil rights era. And in that equation, the Palestinians are the blacks, and the Israelis are the whites. Think about how history views it now as opposed to back then. Back then, white people really thought that God had given them the right and dominion over black people simply because they were black. The Israelis believe the same thing. Their God gave them dominion over Palestine and any of the land that they choose. Mind you, Israel's also taken over different places in the world too. But the worst part is over here in Palestine, and we're funding them. We're protecting them. We're sending them technology, Iron Dome support, like all of that. They would have none of that if it weren't for the Western countries. And we do that because we want to maintain a foothold in the Middle East. So we support the enemy. When you hear the word apartheid, think the reason it sounds familiar is because it is. It's the same handbook that they've been using for centuries. The Pilgrims and the colonizers did it with the Native Americans. Christopher Columbus and his people did it with the Taino Indians down in South America and in the Caribbean. It's the same playbook. The game stays the same. Only the players change. Except for the players tend to follow a certain physiological demographic, a.k.a. they tend to be darker or of a non-Christian religion or non-Christian Judaism religion. The ironic part, though, is a lot of the Jews that are not from Israel and that don't live in Israel don't support Israel because they know that this is bullshit, and they know that their true God would not support an apartheid state. They would not support colonization and the extermination of an entire population. Solely because your God believes that you have the right to do that, and these people, their lives are meaningless. They're a scourge that needs to be obliterated. So yeah, that's the crux of the apartheid system. If it sounds familiar, it's because it is. Nothing new under the sun.
I remember when I first learned about slavery. I remember when I first learned about colonization. I remember when I first learned about the Holocaust. And I remember when I first learned about all the genocides that happened right here on our beloved continent, Africa. All through when I learned about these historical events, I had one question in mind. How did the people that were alive during that time let all of these things happen? Now it's 2023, and right in front of all our eyes, colonization is taking place in Palestine. It's 2023, and in front of all our eyes, genocide is happening in Palestine. And in 2023, while all of this is happening, we have people who are siding with the colonizers. We have people who see nothing wrong with what is going on in Palestine. We are presently making the history that is going to make future generations wonder, in shock. How did people back then let this happen? They would be asking themselves. That's the history we are making right now. Watching present humans react the way they are reacting right now to the situation in Palestine tells me exactly how all the heinous things that happened in the past was able to happen. I used to think all that happened in the past is not possible that they would ever be able to happen again. But what is happening right now in Palestine tells me that all that happened in the past could literally happen again. And as a Black person, that scares me. It does. And if you're a Black person, this doesn't worry you, then you're obviously not processing what's going on the way you are supposed to be processing it. Because this is 2023. That is happening in Palestine right now in 2023. We have phones, we have cameras, we can see everything. There are articles for us to read to see the truth. And people are still so ignorant of what the truth is, and they are following the propaganda and siding with the wrong people. If that can be happening to the Palestine, it can be anybody. It doesn't matter what time we're in. If the powers that be decide that they want to go on a mission, they would go on that mission, and they would create a propaganda and give people reason why they should side with them, and people will. Just like we see people siding with who they are not supposed to be siding with right now, they would side with those people, and history would literally repeat itself. Black people dropping comments like, oh, it's in Palestine, what does that have to do with me? They would not care about me anyways if I was the one in the situation, or if we were the ones in the situation, which of course I get the sentiment. But don't you see that that's exactly how what happened in the past was able to happen? Because yes, people who should care did not care. And now we are doing the same, not caring. And it could be us. And guess what? People still would not care. They wouldn't. That's how history repeats itself. I think it was Mr. Julius Malema that said this. If Palestine isn't free, nobody is free. At first, when I heard that comment, it entered this ear and it came out through the next, but now that I've pondered on it, I see it now where he was coming from. If what is happening in Palestine can be happening in 2023 successfully, it can happen to us. Literally, it can. History could literally repeat itself. And they will be very successful at it. Because they know how gullible humans are. They know what story to tell to make these people side them, and they would tell it and those people would side them, because humans are not very smart. Propaganda, very easy to believe.